Hello and welcome to today's episode of Turning Readers into Writers. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at character development. And I've got 5 questions that you've got to ask of all your protagonists if you want to get to know them better. So let's find out what they are. Welcome to the Turning Readers into Writers podcast, where we teach beginner writers how to find the time and the confidence to write their first novel. I'm your host, Emma Desi, and I'm very excited that you're here. Thank you for joining me today, because if you've been longing to write your novel for forever, then this is the place to be. Think of this as your weekly dose of encouragement, of hand-holding and general cheerleading as you figure out how you're going to write your first novel. Trust me, as a mum of 3 young kids, I know how tricky it can be to tuck some time aside for yourself on a regular basis. And even when you do find that spare 5 minutes, you can feel so overwhelmed that no writing gets done. Trust me, I have been there, but this podcast is going to help you in practical ways, because once a week I'll be delivering an episode that gives you steps to building a writing routine, encouragement to build your confidence, and cheerleading until you reach the end. Okay, let's start. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Turning Readers into Writers. And today we're looking at writing tips for character development. And so why is character development so important? Well, it's said that plot is what makes a reader pick up your book, but it's the characters that keep them reading. And so it's vital you have an interesting and engaging character, although not necessarily a likeable character, if you want to keep your reader interested. So what is the character arc? Well, the character arc is what happens to your character within the plot. It's the internal changes that go on in your character as the plot progresses. It's their psychological evolvement. So when your story begins, your character has a set of beliefs, a set of opinions with which they are happy to stick with. It's what they know, it's what they believe. They don't see any reason that they need to change it. Doesn't matter if your character is happy in their life or not, if they're content or not. These are the beliefs that they have. This is their opinion and view on the world. It's what they know. They're going to stick with it. But by the end of the story, your character has changed. If not all of their opinions, then at least some of their key opinions, their key core beliefs. So, for example, they may start your story as shy or unhappy, but by the end of your story, they're confident, they're much happier, and they're ready to embrace life. So, how do you develop that character, and how do you know where to start? Well, I suggest that you start with 5 questions. So let's go through those 5 questions together. The first question is, what do they want? What does your character want from the story? Now, this is easier for some stories than it is for others. So, for example, in a romance novel, you know your character wants to find love and have their happy ever after. In a mystery, it's going to be to solve the crime. If it's perhaps not a genre book, but maybe more of a literary story, it might simply be that your protagonist wants to resolve an argument with a family member. Maybe they just want a promotion, or perhaps it's just peace of mind that they need. They're looking for some tranquility in their life. So that's the first thing you want to ask yourself, what is it your character wants? The second question to ask is, why do they want this? So once you've understood what your character wants, you now need to understand why they want it. If they're looking for a new relationship, why are they not content to be single? If they want a job promotion, why are they not happy in their current role? If they're looking for peace of mind, what is it that's disturbing their equilibrium? It's this underlying emotional motivation that's going to drive your character to pursue what it is that they want. The third question to ask is, what do they need? So you know what they want and why they want it, but what is it they need? And it's not always the same thing. Often what your character needs is actually quite the opposite to what they want. And as a result, it can be a much harder question to answer. And sometimes you might not find the answer until you start writing. So, if you're a very detailed plotter, you might be giving this a lot of thought up front, and you're going to know this before you even start writing. But if you plot more loosely, or even if you're a discovery writer, you might not understand what it is your character needs until you're sort of halfway, maybe even 3/4 the way through the story. And then a lot of the plot lines are coming together, you're getting to know your character better, and suddenly you can have this kind of epiphany moment where you realise, okay, this is what my character needs. They want this, but actually they need that. So a good example is Jane Austen's novel Emma. So Emma is, she's a spoilt society lady. She's loved by everybody, but she's essentially pretty bored, and she wants to love match her friends because, as I say, she's got nothing much else to do. It's fun, and, she thinks she's good at it. What she needs, though, so she wants to love match her friends, but what she needs is her own love match. She needs to fall in love and start building a life and a family for herself, and that will stop her meddling in her friends' lives. So that's what she needs. So the first question is, what do they want? Then why do they want it? And the third question is, what do they need? The fourth question to ask is, what's standing in your character's way from getting what they want or what they need? And there are generally two types of conflict that stop a character achieving their goal. One is external and one is internal. So external conflicts are those obstacles that come from somebody else or something else. So for example, if you're writing a romance, the love interest in the book has an existing partner. Or if you're writing a book about someone looking to get that job promotion, perhaps there's a very strong competitor for that promotion. So that's coming from the outside, an external conflict or challenge that is stopping your character from getting what they want. The internal conflict, as it suggests, is what comes from the character themselves. It's their own personality, their own belief system that's getting in their way. So, for example, in your romance, it might be that they don't think they're good enough for the person that they love. They think that they're unworthy of that person. Or if it's the job promotion example, perhaps they don't feel they've got the skills, maybe the technical skills, maybe they don't feel they've got the leadership skills, whatever it might be. They doubt themselves. They don't think they've got it in them. And it's that internal conflict that's the really interesting bit, It's, what do they need deep down inside of them, and what is holding them back from realising that dream, from realising that goal. And that conflict, that internal turmoil, that's what gives your novel extra depth and makes it much more memorable. And then the fifth question to ask about your character is, what is at stake if they fail in achieving their goal? So knowing what your character stands to lose if they don't get the object of their desire, if they don't get that promotion, if they don't get that peace of mind, what's at stake then? Because if they don't get their goal, that's going to influence how your character behaves throughout the novel. This is the kind of driving force, the impetus. If you don't get it, what's going to happen? How is their life going to change? And you can think about that in your own life. If you don't get that job promotion, what's that going to mean for your life? It means that you're stuck kind of maybe struggling to get to the end of the month and pay all your bills on time. If you don't get that love interest, then, you might spend the rest of your life alone, and you really, really don't want that. And that's the same for your character. What are the consequences if they don't get that love interest, if they don't get the guy, or, they don't get the job? What's at stake there? And a very clear-cut example is the Hunger Games. It's very obvious what's at stake for Katniss. If she doesn't make it out of the Hunger Games alive, then she loses her life. It's that clear. So those are the 5 questions that you want to ask yourself, or ask of your character. What is it they want? Why do they want it? What is it they need? What's standing in their way? And what is at stake if your character fails? Now, I want to just highlight a common pitfall that many writers, not just beginners, but many writers fall into. And that's that they tend to put something of themselves into their writing. And, you know, for the most part, that's okay. It's hard to avoid altogether. But with experience and with awareness, you can start to pull back on that. So if you feel that you're using too much of your own opinions, too much of the way that you would respond to a situation, if you're aware of that, you can start to change that. Because if all of your characters share your opinions and react in the way that you would, then they're going to lack any contrast or individuality. And for your reader, it's going to be harder to differentiate one character from the other, particularly from book to book. You don't want all of your protagonists to feel like they're the same person. It's one of the reasons, actually, I try to use people that I know in my stories, you know, particularly friends or people who I've met who feel to me larger than life. It's almost like, you know, the more theatrical they are, the more, dare I say, obnoxious they are, then the better a character they can be. So try not to use too much of yourself in your novels. Try and get to know, use those 5 questions to get to know your character as an individual. Because once you do, they will start to take on personality traits of their own, and they will start to tell you how they are reacting to their life, not you telling them. Another thing I'd like to just mention is be careful that your characters are not perfect. When your character is perfect, it makes them quite unlikable. I remember reading Taipan by James Clavell, and it's set on the high China Seas, and I ended up really disliking the hero because there seemed to be nothing he couldn't do. And in the end, I found it really tedious. There was nothing to root for him about, you know, because he could do everything. And so I just gave up. I wasn't really interested in what happened to the hero. And I have to admit, I vowed I'd never read another Clavell book again, and I haven't done. And the reason that you don't want your character to be perfect is because everybody is flawed. You and I, we have our flaws, but those are often the things that make us interesting and complex people. And it's the same for your characters. You know, think about somebody as influential and as famous as Nelson Mandela, hugely powerful activist, an outstanding leader. But by all accounts, he was not a great husband and not a great father. Something had to give. He couldn't be all things to all people. And that is the same for your characters too. Character flaws can also reveal a lot about a person's backstory. So, you know, why are they addicted to alcohol? Why can they not commit to a relationship? Why do they skip from job to job? So those little flaws about them, it might reveal something about their backstory, which you can then incorporate into your novel. And don't forget to look at the outside stuff too, you know, those additional details, the stuff that we think are perhaps more skin deep. You know, what do they look like? How old are they? What kind of physique do they have? What about skin and eye colour, and do they have any distinguishing features? So besides the 5 questions that I've mentioned before that relate directly to the story, what else do you know about your character's background? Did they have a happy childhood? Do they have siblings? How do they get on at school? What special skills or attributes do they have? So these are all kind of parts of getting to know your character's personality. You know, are they generally a cheerful person, or are they the kind of, you know, the glass is always half empty type of person? Do they laugh out loud, or do they chuckle quietly? Are they a flamboyant leader, or are they a steady right-hand person? So it's really important to get to know your characters. And as I've said before, you know, your relationship with them, as you get to know them, that's going to inform how your story progresses. How your character responds to the action that you put them in, that will give you details about the backstory, and you can use that in your novel itself. And then you'll have this lovely arc of the person that you started off with and the person that you have at the end of the book. And readers love that. They want to see people striving. They want to see people changing. They want to see people going through a tough time and coming out on top. And that's why even if you're writing an unlikable character in the beginning, if they're interesting enough, if there's something engaging about them, your reader is going to root for them and want them to see them try. Your reader wants to witness your character's transformation. And by asking these 5 questions, by adding in the additional details, by thinking about your character's flaws, these are all things that are going to help you have that transformative character development, character arc that your reader will love. So I hope you found that useful. Those 5 questions really are pivotal. Let me know if there's anything else that you like to ask about your characters. Is there a technique you use to get to know them better and formulate that character arc, that character development? But until next time, I shall see you soon. Bye. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found that helpful and inspirational. Now, don't forget to come on over to Facebook and join my group, Turning Readers into Writers. It is especially for you if you are a beginner writer who is looking to write their first novel. If you join the group, you will also find a free cheat sheet there called 3 Secret Hacks to Write with Consistency. So go to emmadesi.com/turning readers into writers, hit join. Can't wait to see you in there. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.